Hey everybody, and welcome back to Think Big Code Small. As a software developer, do you feel like you're being tracked more and more as time goes on? You do tracking and reporting, but it never really seems to be enough. And now there's a push for developer productivity. They want to track your lines of code, they want to track your commits, and want to really keep a good eye on you. Do you ever really wonder why that is? Well, stay tuned, and we're going to dig down into that topic today.
So I'll ask you the next question, really, because now we kind of understanding somewhat of productivity and where it is, where we're kind of coming, how it's changed, all the components. But why are organizations pushing so much? And it seems even more so, especially into this year, right? Why are we pushing so much so in this space?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons for this, but one of them is really around a push for clarity into what's going on inside of their organization. There's board levels, there's CEOs, there's CFOs looking at their balance sheets and saying, well, I'm spending 30-40% of our total spend on engineering. What am I getting? If you walk into the store, you go to somewhere else and you write them a check for something, you know what you're going to get pretty much. But I'm spending all of this money and I really I can see what I'm getting, but I don't know how that is really aligning to our goals and the impact to the business, driving revenue and those kinds of things. And that level of ambiguity is what I think the root of a lot of this is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think CEOs and CFOs consistently, not just this year even, but consistently year after year, don't have clarity on what the investments really are, what they're getting for their money per se, right? So we keep hiring, we keep pulling in more and more resources, we keep creating different departments, and there might not be a clear understanding of what the outcome is, right? The ROI coming out of the other end in a way that it's causing fear, or it's causing distrust, or it's doing whatever. But it causes a level, I think distrust is probably a good word. It causes a level of distrust, not maybe in the way it might get defined, but more so of just lack of clarity. And that lack of clarity causes nervousness. And then people get nervous and want to know more, which then asks for measurement of the developer productivity like we're talking about.
Yeah. And, to take that and kind of dig it down one more level, If you're a developer or a person inside of their organization, you can get very nervous when people start to talk about these kinds of things because, what are the reasons you might think of that a CTO or a CEO or CFO would want to start to measure productivity? And, to me, it breaks down into really four kind of separate categories. But the first one, and this is where a lot of people are nervous right now, who should I fire? And if times are getting rough, if revenues are falling, if things are shrinking, somebody's going to make a list of people that are getting the axe. And one of the ways they could do that is by trying to measure productivity.
Right. And even not in bad times, organizations are usually looking at how do I get rid of the bottom 10%, right? That came from Jack Welch in his book a long time ago, which is how do organizations, consistently clean off that bottom layer to refresh the organization to make sure it's staying, it's working effectively and it's staying competitive in the space it's in. If you keep trying to carry that bottom 10%, it's going to hurt performance of the organization.
Well, and if you can clearly show these are the folks that are providing levels of value, then that becomes a very easy way of being able to say, well, these are the people that we should be, pushing out of the organization. And then to go find those next level of rock stars are the people that are rising through the organization, not the people that are stagnating at the bottom. I've worked with a number of people that I am very happy with what I'm doing. I come in, I do exactly what you're trying to say. I'm not trying to get promoted. I'm not trying to be the CEO of the next company. I'm not trying to do any of these things. I want to come in, do my job, and leave. And you just have to, that's one of the problems that can come in when you start talking about these things, because how do you measure that person's productivity and in the end, value to the organization? And that person may not be the most productive, but they do provide a ton of value. And those are very, very different things.
To where you were going too, though, I think what's important is we said CEOs and CFOs, and from a business layer, there's that. I think there's a part that doesn't come up as often is the CTO also needs to understand a lot of this data. And even though they're the ones, because of their role, they end up frustrating the CEO and the CFO because they can't give better knowledge, better data, because they don't have it. I think it's important to understand they also need it, because without that, they can't do like you're saying. They also can't figure out how they're going to coach and mentor and level up the staff itself because they don't have a clear view.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you hand out bonuses? How do you support people with training opportunities or things that they need to be a better engineer, to stay up to date with the newest, kind of technologies and the things that are going to help drive innovation inside of the organization? So it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of really good reasons to gather some of this information. It's just, one of the key aspects that I always think of is, you can do developer productivity with the community. You don't want to do developer productivity to the community.
Because I think that's what happens over time, in my experience especially, is the numbers that you put in place to be helpful to the teams become the numbers that you're using to manage the team. And when that happens, the value you're trying to get out of this is eliminated, immediately eliminated. And now you're just destroying your productivity. You're destroying your culture. You're creating stress for very little value, honestly.
Use case for some of this is resource allocation and being able to structure teams with the right set of skills. And whether it's adding somebody to a team because you know that they can be kind of the rock of that team, or it's somebody else that's trying to, they may need to stretch into that, but it's a small enough project that you can say, this is the person, and now I'm going to allow them a little bit of leeway to take on this project, knowing that it's a bit of a stretch for them, but you're still trying to give them room to grow and to make the organization better as they continue to grow.
And you understand them and their environment well enough that you know who to pair them with to get the internal assistance, so you're coaching them as you're helping them to grow in that. You also understand enough of the project and the person to know the level of stress you're putting them under for them to grow from it. So this is going to be, what do they call it? There's a name for both sides of stress, because there is positive stress that you want to be under, and we learn from positive stress. So the idea, like you're saying, is putting them onto a project that's going to help them grow. But if you don't understand that person enough through more than just the metrics, you're not going to be able to help them to grow. You can't put them into that.
Takes good levels of leadership and being able to truly understand your organization. But sometimes you don't have that kind of time. Board level folks, CEOs, CFOs, they're getting frustrated by some of these things because the CTO keeps coming back and saying, measuring engineering is hard. It's impossible. I can't do it. And, those same kind of things, but the CEOs and the CFOs can look across the rest of the organization and say, they're doing it. Why can't you do it? And the answer of, I just can't isn't going to hold on forever. And it's starting to whittle away. And you can see some of that by our friends at McKinsey jumping into this space. And what you're going to see, and I think you already are, is they're going to basically say, CTO, I don't care what you have to say. My consultant friends here from McKinsey say that they can measure developer productivity, and we're doing it whether you like it or not. But if you think about it from a CFO lens, and they're sitting in there, they're doing your quarterly business review, and the sales guy comes down and says, you know what, for the first quarter, we had a budget of 600,000, or the target of 600,000, and we only got 520,000. Take accountability for the miss. Here's the reason it happened. And, next quarter goals were changing to 650. And here's the things that we're going to do to drive to that. Super clear metric on what was expected, what were the results, And then not even that, what salespeople actually got the sales and what people didn't was super clear.
Because we're talking numbers, and they all have numbers, and they either hit their number or they didn't. It's a simple metric to watch.
Well, and the same thing kind of applies to whether it's recruiting, whether it's marketing, whether it's, you just start naming other things. Is there's a very clear target with a very clear outcome. And, you know, oh, well, the marketing team had X amount of budget. They were expecting X amount of engagement. Did they or did they not actually get it? And it becomes really clear.
Right. We get to engineering, and engineering, though, like in this example, says, oh, this quarter we shipped feature A. We're slightly behind on some of the tech debt migration. Next quarter, we're going to ship feature B, and we're going to try to catch up on the migration. And this by itself is part of the problem, right? We're not talking numbers. We're not talking outcomes. We're not talking results. It's a different language altogether. No one in the room probably understands technology, so they don't know what you're talking about for tech debt, and they don't understand migration, and they're not sure where you're going with this, and everybody's just frustrated.
Yeah, you were behind on the API, whatever that means. And
whatever that means.
What does that mean? But from the CFO's perspective, it's, well, you had a $3 million spend in that quarter for all of the people and everything else that you're trying to do. Well, what did I get out of it?
What I get for my money. Yep.
And, you know, I think there's a couple other things that come into there where every month or quarter, however often they're doing these things, everything always seems to be behind. And
right.
And so it's okay, well, you know, these people are all clear cut. This one seems to always be behind. You're always telling me some story I don't understand. You're always asking for more money, for more people, for more things. And I just don't, I can't, they just cannot quite seem to put those two together. And I don't blame them. It's a very hard thing to take technical things and translate it to non-technical people.
Tech people always say they don't like sales. And I don't mean for the sales group of our example, but sales in general, which means we don't create good narratives. So when you think about this example, we're not aligning the right narrative to the audience to let them know what we're doing in technology and how it's helping the business. So that mere fact of saying you don't like sales is actually making this problem worse because you're not learning to tell an effective narrative.
So what do you think? Are there other reasons for a developer productivity push? Is there ways to connect technical and non-technical people inside of an organization? And can you really align software development with business impact? Let us know what you think down in the comments. Also, don't miss out on our next video, so make sure to subscribe. We're going to be digging into developer productivity, bullshit jobs, overemployment, and remote work.